All right. Stream is live.
Great. Shoot me that link if you have it.
Get that sweet link.
I don't know why my eyes got so dry all of a sudden. I have dry. There's not been a dry eye in the house, Brandon, all day, and then suddenly, completely dried out over here.
Okay. All right. I see that we're gonna again drop that link in the chat.
All right. Oh, there we go. Okay. I mean, I don't have the link from you in the chat, but I do see that we're live on YouTube. So
Yeah.
hey.
All right. Here you go.
There we go. Okay,
There it
cool.
is.
All right, great. Let me just shoot that out real quick, and then we can get started.
Oh, nice. I'm getting some feedback here. God, we are such newbies. Such newbies.
I don't know. I thought the last one was fine, and then I listened back to when you dropped it as a podcast, and you were like, you spent the first 3 minutes apologizing for it, and I was like, it isn't that bad. It's
Yeah, it's that's never a way an artist should art like create the criticism before the art's even presented. Seems like a bad way to go.
You're probably not going to like this, but hey, here's this content.
Look at this. We've got Lou Crisp, Liverpool supporter in the chat. What's up, Lou? And our good friend Pat Riley.
Oh yeah.
Logistical discussions. We're already getting ribbed, I think you could say, Josh.
Okay, I'm just going to drop this, and then why don't we go ahead and get started? Why don't as I'm dropping these links, Brandon? Why don't you tell me?
Yeah.
So I guess you were eating a luxurious multi-course dinner or something like that. But I just found out about Harry Kane maybe a half hour ago or so. I'm very excited because it's a great last minute spanner in the works. Right? It's very exciting.
Well,
but,
is it a spanner? Yeah. We're talking about Harry Kane, obviously. I feel like most people I was encountering working on FPL teams were assuming Kane was not necessarily assuming he was leaving, but just assuming he was not going to be a factor.
Sure.
I've heard people basically just try to convince themselves that even if Kane stays, I don't get him. I've heard people say, well, Kane stays, I've got to have him. I've got to rip up the team. I frankly just never gonna stay. I love being the guy who's right.
Well, okay, it's one thing to know that Kane is going to be leaving soon. It's another thing to have him actually. If it was anyone but David Ornstein, if he was even one of these Fab Romano, the agent is leaking this to the press type things, I wouldn't necessarily believe it. But when the Doracle says that this is a done deal, it's always a done deal, right? This guy's like, no, it's like he's like the Arsenal website of leaks, right? It's like once it's up on the Arsenal website, we know it's real.
Yeah.
So I think now that we know it's real, because the problem I had when it came to evaluating what to do with Richarlison or Son or even possibly Kane, right? If we decided to, if he decided to stay, was as experienced fantasy managers, you and I know that you often have these seasons where for 2 or 3 weeks, right? And then they'll leave at the trade deadline. They tried to fix this a couple of years ago where the Premier League trade deadline was at the end of the season. And then they decided that it gave them they're a competitive disadvantage because the rest of Europe didn't follow suit, right? So they decided, all right, we're just going to do it, September 1 like we always have. And so so we could have been in a situation where Kane played for like 2 or 3 weeks and then left, which obviously would have hurt Richarlison's value. I think the question of like what to do with Son is, I think, a little bit trickier. I'm not as convinced that Son is a better fantasy asset without Kane. I mean, his numbers without Kane are pretty strong, but it's a pretty limited sample. I don't know. I mean, does Richarlison kind of hoover all that stuff up? Oh, wow. Our friend Alex Shepard created a YouTube account to participate in this. That's friendship right there.
The Fast and Furious movies got better or worse after the unfortunate demise of Paul Walker?
I was never really a fan. Okay, true story. I think the only one I've actually seen all the way through was the one where he died and they filmed the digital scenes. because I was curious. They never actually even really kill him in the movie, right? In the movie, he leaves the family behind and just goes
He
and
went
lives in
all
like
like
a
6
island of
underground,
Bahamas
and
or something.
he's hanging out with
Yeah,
Ryan Reynolds, doing like coke. Like
they should have at least
he's
like
dead.
put him in prison or something like that, right? It's like him just like
All right.
leaving them all behind is weird.
You did not see where I was trying to lead you there with that question. What I'm asking
No,
you is many different franchises, whether they're sports franchises or film franchises, once
yeah,
you lose a main character, you tend to just like lose like interest entirely in the whole project.
right,
So is Kane this sort of like Ivan Tony-esque figure? Like I'm fading Brentford hard right now because
right,
they're missing Raya and Tony, like both ends of the pitch. They're missing their
right.
best players. Kane leaves. What I think the most interesting factor for Spurs is Postecoglou because he plays this
Yeah.
interesting brand of football where maybe he reinvents players like Richarlison and Son in ways we don't really know are possible at this
Yeah,
moment.
I think that's the thing is we don't really know. And by the way, we'll talk. We want to talk about Kane a little bit. Share some team updates where we are. Do some actual screen sharing. That's how completely advanced and not at all inexperienced we are with this. And then we want to take some questions too. We had a few questions in the Discourse. We'll take questions from the chat as well. So obviously the FPL deadline is something like 31 hours from now. 1:30. Reminder that's 90 minutes because many people forget, Brandon, that it's 90 minutes. It's not 60 minutes like it used to be. So I think the thing is with Spurs, I think you and I maybe both have a little bit of a Spurs blockage because they've been a frustrating team in fantasy for a long time. They never really replaced Erickson when he left, right? And so it
Yeah.
created a little bit of a creative vacuum up front. And so they have effectively done that now, right? They, with James Madison, it's actually it's a kind of interesting team. The question is, are they a mid-table team? Are they a top? I think they're like Europa League level. But I mean, I guess like I'm trying to think of Richarlison, right? As
Yeah.
Richarlison was a player who at times has been a very, very enjoyable player to own in fantasy. He's very streaky. He can have huge returns. He can be incredibly frustrating, right? Because he falls down like you've hit him across the side of the head with a baseball bat, right? If you so much, I don't know why I went baseball bat there, but he
Yeah,
falls
that's
down very easily.
brutality. My
It was.
God.
I thought it was a very like I feel like I painted a strong mental image for myself and everyone
Yeah.
listening. But he's a little whatever. He just he's creative in the way he responds to things. It can be a little frustrating sometimes. But so
He's creative.
if Richarlison was a 7 million midfielder and he was still playing for Everton, no,
Yeah.
would not be a player to necessarily consider. But Richarlison as an out of position forward for a kind of rejuvenated Spurs, I think is possibly worth a gamble. I mean, I think all of the players in that 6.5, 7 million range they're all kind of gambles. I mean, the idea that Brian Mbomo is suddenly this absolute can't miss prospect is, I think, not right. And we've talked about that a little bit in the pod. I think the loss of Ivan Toney could really affect him. Ivan Toney is I mean, he scores a lot of goals too, but he has a little bit of that Roberto Firmino quality, right? Too, where he presses and he's very unselfish, willing to pass, and so you can't lose a player like that and have it not affect things a little bit. So yeah, I mean, again, I don't know if that's really the same as your Fast and Furious. I think the Fast and Furious. I mean, don't you think that? I mean, Harry Kane is like Vin Diesel, right? Or he's like maybe The Rock. I don't know. I mean, The Rock's like a new addition though, so I don't know if that really
He's Vin.
counts.
He's Vin all the way.
He's
That's
Vin. He's got to be Vin.
maybe he's Michelle Rodriguez on a different day. But I'm pretty sure Harry Kane is Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
We've got a lot more to get this Spurs dilemma, and I have a point that I want to get to with Spurs and Richarlison, which leads back to our friend Mark McGettigan, the general. Before we do that, just a quick plug for we've this in as seamlessly as possible. We've been sponsored. Always Cheating has been pumping out the preseason content, and all the while we have been sponsored by Fantasy Football Hub. We love them. We know them. We use them. And just for everybody listening and watching right now, be mindful. If you want to do well this season, every tool that you can gather is going to be helpful. And through Always Cheating, you can get 50% off any membership tier fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/always. Remember that keyword, always. We've mentioned this on the pod.
Yeah.
Cool things this season from the hub. You get your money back if you don't win your mini league. Terms and conditions apply. They now have a proprietary AI that is rating your team. They have a great stats gateway with
Yeah.
OptiStat Life, experts revealing their teams week to week, and with his ultimate fixture ticker. So there's so many reasons to love Fantasy Football Hub.
I think we're good.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
good. That was
everyone
the
feels
read.
like, yeah, you just tried to sell them a timeshare in Boca Raton.
Yeah,
But,
meet me at
okay.
the hub, and I pack a picnic lunch, and I'll see you there. So
All
when
right,
we
okay, go ahead.
when
You go
we
ahead.
talked to the general on
Yes.
Monday,
Yeah.
I was I was just like really intrigued by he was getting into the gory details of his like quote unquote conservative
Yep.
approach. And General was talking about how he's never interested in new players coming into the league,
Yep.
largely because of the unpredictability. Also, scenario, you lose 1 or 2 game weeks of that player if suddenly they hit the ground running. You can
Right.
always transfer them in.
Yeah.
So this comes back to Spurs in this way of there's a lot of upside, I think, at the moment from a fantasy point of view, because with Kane gone, suddenly a lot Carlson specifically becomes more sort of fantasy
Yeah.
value. But I just don't think one would advocate for starting game week on with him.
See, I guess it just comes down to a style question here. And I just, to me, I feel like he's not a complete unknown. I mean, he played an entire season last year for Spurs, albeit without scoring a single goal in the Premier League somehow. But he did. I think he scored a couple offside goals for what it's worth. And by the way, producer Travis Grant is in the house, Brandon. So we got to take that Trossard question in a second.
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of friends in here. This is great.
Yeah,
Welcome everybody.
But I think, and also, someone was noting a moment ago that there are some rumors about Richarlison possibly being injured. So that's always a fun thing to know as well. This is now, FPL is honestly, there's a lot of like the FPL is truly back meme, Brandon. But I think rumors about a player being injured that may or may not be true is, to me, the ultimate FPL is truly back moment. There's
Your
nothing.
favorite
The amount of
rumors,
hours I've
Josh.
spent in my life. Yeah. Oh, favorite. Yeah, it's that rumor, the album rumors, and then everything else is a distant.
You finally
were on
We're finally. It took Fleetwood Mac to get us on the same wavelength tonight.
Yeah.
FPL After Dark. This is what Fantasy Man. You're not drinking beer. I think is the slogan that we sent to the Library of Congress. So Spurs. So it sounds like you're in it,
Sure.
but not from a game week 1 perspective.
No, I'm interested from a game week 1 perspective.
Okay.
I think. Do
you want to share your team right now? Some context, or
no, it won't, because I don't have Richarlison in it yet. The news just broke like an hour ago. I'm still deciding whether I want to do it or not. But I think I don't know. I mean, I like the. Okay, so you talked about whether of course you never need to make a move like this right away. You never need to. You can always wait until they show you that they're good, and then you can move with everybody else, right?
Yes.
But there are times when, if you get there a week in advance, and I've told this story many times before, I'm turning into like an FPL dad. I feel like FPL dad is already taken as a handle, but if it wasn't, I might adopt it for myself. But
so you're like Spalding Greg to be FPL.
But I remember a few seasons ago, it was Timu Pukki looked really good in his opening match against Liverpool, and but no one was really, it was away at Liverpool. Norwich got smacked. I think it was like a 4-1 loss. No one was really talking about Pukki after that game week, but I just like the upside there. I think they were playing a pretty bad Newcastle team at home in game week 2. And so I just went a week early on it. And he got a hat trick in that match and early propelled what ended up being one of my best ever seasons. And so I think there are times when it's worth the gamble. And I could see, and maybe I'm just building a narrative here, but that's kind of that's sometimes what you have to do, right? It's just like a kind of projection. I could see Richarlison being like, "Oh my God, I'm finally getting my chance, right? This is my moment. I've been waiting for so long to be the man on this team." There's all this talk about how he's a great fit for Postagl. Ange. I'm just gonna call him
Postecoglou.
Ange. Yeah, it's the
Ange.
hard one.
Ange.
Yeah,
Yeah, call him
it's like
Ange.
it's like Antetokounmpo. You know, it's just a hard one to get out.
Well, you got there and I
correctly.
didn't. So
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
1-1.
But all this talk about how he's a great fit, but I just don't. I don't know. I mean, and so I think that there's it's the problem is it's a projection. If it was a great game week 1 fixture, I would consider it. But away to Brentford are always strong at home, and it's opening game week. So I don't know. I mean, so I guess I'm just trying to make a case for Richarlison. I'm not necessarily going to bring him in myself. I really want to kind of spend tonight thinking about it a little bit more. And I think if I brought in with Charleston, what I would want to do is probably restructure my squad a little bit. And I'd probably go 5 across the middle, which is not how I'm set up at the moment. The moment I'm more like, depending whether I go with Salah or not. If I go with Salah, it's like a 4-4-2. If I go without Salah, it's like a 4-3-3 that I'm working with. So, or no, it's a 3-4-3 actually. Old school 3-4-3. Brandon,
it's a classic.
Don't knock it. It's
FPL classic.
It still works. Yeah.
So we got a question from our friend James Holland, who he wanted to talk about Mudryk, and I think this plays into the theme here of, at this point before the season starts, you can do what you're talking about. You can just start crafting a narrative before it even happens.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's always, it's not always, but it is often the greatest trap for fantasy players is you try to will something existence.
It's if you're a bad narrative creator, it is. If you're good at it, then it's a great way to have a great season. It just depends on whether your instincts are good. All right, so why don't we why don't I share my team like you suggested a moment ago?
Let's do it.
And let's see if I can actually get this screen share to work.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I got a question here while you're doing that.
Yeah.
Who asked, Brandon, how is a Richarlison shout different than your Chukwuemeka shout in your mind? And that's a fair question. Like, Chukwuemeka has far less fantasy history than a player like Richarlison, and he's not successful. But the thing with him is he's 4.5, and he's a bench place filler. So that's the case I would make there. Richarlison is 7 million, which is actually, if he comes good, is incredible value. Okay. But I think at that price, Richarlison takes the place of somebody here in your midfield.
Can someone confirm in my chat, by the way, that this screen share is actually working? Sorry about that. This is my first time doing this. I want to. Okay, it's working. Okay, great.
I'm working all sides here. I'm in the control room.
Perfect. All right, Brandon. Wow, it's like what's that Jordan Peele movie? It's a
Get Out.
Get Out. Yeah, exactly. I'm just drifting in the background. All right. So, all right. Here's the squad I put together this afternoon. This is a Mo Salah squad. Okay. I have not, up until literally 3 hours ago, even really considered a Mo Salah squad. But this is what a Salah squad.
Well, what changed?
Like, right?
What changed? Why Salah?
Well, yeah, I think I should, right? If I'm sharing my screen, I should probably, So
explain yourself.
Well, part of it is I'm a little concerned about having Bruno and Odegaard. There's something about having Bruno, Rashford, Odegaard, Saka. It feels like I'm doing some kind of hedge there or something. It's like it's like hard for me to imagine all 4 of those players going off. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, perhaps it's no different than having 4 different players from 4 different squads and just, but it feels like somehow I'm balancing things out a little bit by having a little more squad, a little more difference in my squad. So this is what a team like that could look like. I'm also, I have to say, I'm a little concerned about João Pedro because even though I think he's a really great option, his price is incredible. Looks like he's on pens to the extent that we can trust preseason. I'm not honestly entirely sure if we can trust preseason, but there are a lot of strong candidates for that forward position. I could see him not starting game week 1. I could see him getting pulled in the 55th minute. I could see, I mean, he might come on, and granted we have all this extra time and stuff, but Matoma is an incredibly safe player in that Brighton squad. And so part of me wonders if I should just opt for a little more safety in Matoma. The squad that I discussed on the Sunday pod didn't have Matoma in it. So this squad would be a 4-4-2. obviously Gabriel Estepanian, and then I've got Luke Shaw still, who I'm kind of still holding on to, even though that price point does make him a little bit trickier because I don't completely trust Man United.
Great
Chilwell,
guy to have it though, Luke Shaw.
yeah. Rashford, Salah, Matoma, Saka, Jackson, and Holland. So this, I think, is a pretty strong 11. And then I've got the Pickford Turner rotation there, possible rotation. I might just start Pickford all the time. We'll see. The problem with this squad is there's nothing on the bench, nothing. And so the second one of my defenders has a bad week, I'm in trouble. The second something goes, I don't know, just like the second somebody gets injured, the second somebody just gets rotated, which this squad, as I'm sharing it, is not a heavily rotatable squad, but those are the sorts of problems that I see, right? So if I tinker with things a little bit, right? So let's say I drop Salah. If I drop Salah and I turn him into Bruno, so now I've got 4 million to move around here. Then I can turn Mbumba into Mbumba. Did I not say that right?
I don't know. I'm just sort of
Mubama. I really, I struggle with pronunciations, Brandon. I do it even more when I'm doing live recordings.
Pronunciations. So that's how much you're struggling.
So if I move on, it's like if I just get rid of Salah, it's like everything gets so much better across the board, right? It's like suddenly it's like, oh great, I can drop any number of 4.5 million options in here. So let's just just do these.
What are we expecting from Salah? That's the question.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another version of the squad, right? This is a 3-4-3. So we Shaw, Gabriel, Estupinan. I mean, this version I'd actually have 3 Brighton in this case. Although that's fairly fixable. I'd have Chilwell. I'd move him to the first bench spot. I'd have Mings, who I could start in game week 2 if I wanted to. And I actually still have 2.5 million in here. So I could turn Matoma into a player up to 9 million. I could go Gabriel. I could go Odegaard. Maybe it's just Odegaard. I just feel like I'm struggling a little bit with Odegaard. He's the kind of player that I struggle to get excited about.
For other players to get in his place, then.
Yeah, Phil Foden, Martinelli.
Well, one thing you could do is just go even cheaper and upgrade João Pedro to. I mean, let's see. Would you have bump Pedro up to somebody like Ollie Watkins?
That's interesting. Yeah, so Watkins would be, and then I'd have, I'd actually still have 6.5 million in that case. Is that right?
So I think
wow.
And then you get Matoma right there in that spot, and that's a team.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Okay, team. That's interesting. This is a pretty good team.
Daddy Bot in the chat says Maddo. We've also got love. I Luke Crisp here on the love for Pau Torres. I'll share my screen in a moment. I've got Pau Torres instead of me.
So this is the Watkins team. It's again Chilwell first bench. I don't really mind having Chilwell first bench though, because I really want to have a couple of Chelsea players for those back-to-back matches and where they're home in 3 and 4. I think it's Luton and is it like Luton and Sheffield or something like that, back to back in those matches.
Breaking news, Josh. This is live. We got breaking news in the chat by way of Fabrizio Romano. Liverpool submitted their official bid for Moises Caicedo.
Yep.
Are set to accept. Does this change our opinion on Brighton? Because so
no.
we're working friendly we saw at Red Bull Arena with Newcastle. Brighton cut them up. Caicedo was a part of that, and he looked incredible.
Yeah.
You got to trust De Zerbi. I feel like he brings in B, C squad players, and they still are really drilled on the system. It doesn't worry me all that much.
I think I have to, I have to, we have to be friendly and share here, but I think, I like this team.
Yeah.
If the deadline was tomorrow, I see this, and outside of Salah, who is obviously a huge miss. But I wouldn't, even in game week 2 at home to Bournemouth, I will be captaining Erling Haaland. I'm sorry. You can captain anybody you want,
Yeah.
but I will captain Haaland until he gets injured. Um, I think, I mean, I don't love starting Watkins away to Newcastle, but I think that makes the most sense. I think I'd rather do that than
Yeah.
start Chilwell home to Liverpool.
Don't you think
So, you know,
Watkins as a player is, if you bring him into your team, you've just brought him in to play him every week,
yeah,
and
yeah,
not in a Grims. You've got to
yeah.
be positive if you bring Watkins in.
The
You got to put the
the the
positive
really
energy out
the
there.
really bold move is the old fashioned pre-bank a transfer move, Brandon. Very bold, has backfired on many a manager over the years. And I could literally start with João Pedro in the Watkins spot. So then I'd have Stupinan, Matoma, Pedro for game week 1. And then I would have the versatility to either go Jackson to Watkins or go Pedro to Watkins, depending on how I felt about
Hmm.
those two players going into game week 2.
Yeah.
That's an interesting possibility. It's a little bit riskier, obviously, but I have enough bench depth that I think I could get away with it. So I don't know. So that's an in general, I don't like pre-booking a transfer, but I think going into the season, it's not the worst move. And I think there's a real strategic benefit in maximizing the game week right in front of you to start the
Yeah.
season. So, all right, there's where we are. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Yeah. The full like Microsoft Teams mode of like, can I take over?
All right,
All
you're
right,
in.
I'm in. So let me see if I can get this right. Um, yeah, that's right. So I've got my team up. So
Okay.
I'm actually dealing with some similar issues
Yeah.
as you just kind of talked about. Namely, I just don't feel super comfortable with triple Brighton. Now, the Caicedo news is a little squishy. I think it maybe, as some of the chat is suggesting, creates more interesting to do with Liverpool in fantasy than what to do with Brighton.
Yeah.
Um, And I mean, we're not getting Brighton defense because we're not getting a Stupinan because of the clean sheets. We're getting him for the attacking potential. But I do feel slightly exposed with João Pedro, given the conservative sort of approach we discussed at the start of the show. But this is a solid draft. And I feel like to get a solid draft to a 3-4-3 takes
Yep.
some doing.
This is
And
Mo
that's,
Salah.
yeah, Mo Salah. Yeah, that's
Mo
the one.
Salah. Yeah.
Mohamed
Yep.
Salah.
Yep.
That's where João Pedro really sings for me, is if you're trying to do a 3-4-3 with Salah. And where have I sacrificed here? Well, I'm I don't I and I'm kind of happy to have him. If I had to only have one of two, I'd rather have Rashford. I cannot afford Rashford, and maybe I could find point
Yeah.
five somebody else, but that's a sacrifice I've made. Somehow I've ended up with double Arsenal defense, but there is, and again,
Timber.
yeah, I mean, I love Timber. I think
How
he
long is
was.
Zinchenko out for? That feels risky to me.
He's not really even out. He was just playing I think he was playing a charity game in Ukraine, which was why
Okay.
he hasn't been present with the squad recently. But Timber is, I mean, he's been brought in to be a first team player, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
he's better than Zinchenko, I
I
will
just think
dare
I
say.
just think it's risky to have a rotation risk. I don't know,
Well,
but
this is it. This is it. These are the risks and the gambles that this draft presents. Now, so if I want to sort of, stable game week 1 team, which I would advise if you're looking to rank really high,
yep,
is get rid of Timber and get rid of João Pedro. You've demonstrated it with your team to fill those places with consistent FPL picks. You kind of have to get rid of Salah. And I have got, I think having Pau Torres first on my bench, at least I feel like there's a player who's probably going to play a lot of minutes this season. I feel somewhat comfortable there. Chukwuemeka, as soon as Nkuku comes back fit, we don't really
yep,
know what the timeline is there, but Chukwuemeka probably doesn't play a lot after that. But he's this in the preseason. He's gotten some minutes, 4.5. He's like he's not a horrible fifth midfielder. I think the problem maybe is he'll drop in value pretty quickly once he stops getting minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think about this solid draft?
I don't love it. I mean, I like lots of it, but I think Timber to me is a risk. Pau is new, even though I rate him too, and I think he starts. But Chukwuemeka, I mean, it's like you don't have like a ton of a bench. I feel like it feels like this is a team that you're going to want to. I don't know. I mean, I don't hate it. I shouldn't say it, but I don't. It feels like I mean, honestly,
I've
you know what?
vexed
It's
you.
just
I've vexed you.
well, no, I'm just thinking it through. I think that it's similar to the squad that we just kind of put together
Yeah.
collaboratively for me a moment ago. It's just I guess I just really do like all of the extra balance that you get from my squad. And that the yours feels like a little top heavy with lots of question marks in it.
Sure.
Even
Yeah.
Pedro's a bit of a question mark, right? And so Timber, Pedro, Pouch. It's like there's like 5 question marks, and I think that's the concern a little bit.
So this is the experiment to demonstrate the ripple effect, and
Yep.
I think it's a very interesting discussion to have about how much do we actually fear Salah? We do fear him. To not
Mm-hmm.
have him, you're a fool to say you wouldn't fear that.
Sure.
But if you're not captaining him, what? How do we rate that risk? Uh, like, do we think that in this current Liverpool setup that Salah will kill us if we don't have him the first month of the season?
I mean, listen, he's the most explosive, so of course that's a possibility. But I think I'm ultimately not going to have him to start the season, and I think the reason why is I was just sort of looking at the fixtures ahead for Liverpool, and it outside of game week 2. First of all, game weeks 1 and game weeks 3 are straight up kind of bad for him, right? I mean, Chelsea were not the strongest team defensively last year, but they were strong enough, right? I mean, they have enough quality players, and they brought in a new manager, and they've had a summer to get settled, and it's just not a match where I would expect Salah to absolutely go off. Game week 2, okay, sure, that should be a good match for him. Game week 3 is away to Newcastle. I think that's another pretty difficult match. Game week 4, I think, aren't they away to? Let me pull it up here real quick. I think they host Villa, but Villa have been like a little bit of a bogey team for them the last couple of years, and they've got a really good manager, and I could see that being just sort of a tricky match for them. Game week 5 away to Wolves should be a good match for him, but not. But it's another away match, right? So there's like 3 away matches, and actually it's 4. They played away 4 times in their first 5 matches. No, they don't. I'm sorry, 3 out of 5. The Villa match is home, but that's like an away match, Brandon, because Emery's
Very
going
much
to
so.
make it so tough. So I don't look at that and think if there were even like a couple promoted teams in there or a couple of really like teams they could just absolutely walk over, then I would be a little more concerned about it. But every team they play in the first 4 weeks, certainly, maybe a little different once we get to Wolves, but the first 4 weeks are competent, right? And so, and Bournemouth, who knows? I mean, they fired O'Neill, and so I don't really know what they're doing. I thought Bournemouth actually ended the season looking pretty strong and solid last year. Obviously, they did get absolutely destroyed when they played Liverpool, but that was at the start of last season. Felt like they were a different team by the end of last season. They looked
This
pretty good.
this new Bournemouth manager, I already forgotten his name. He actually played for NYC FC. I had to
Yeah.
look up, did he play there while we had season tickets? Andoni Iriola. Uh, go
Yes.
to his Wikipedia page here. Let me share this. It looks like manager looks most like he has a LinkedIn picture on his Wikipedia page. Here we go. So, what do we think is going on? Bournemouth, I feel like Gary O'Neill
Oh wow. This
should be.
guy, this is the kind of like little image you see when you get an email from somebody that's trying to like switch to your like paper
Yeah.
supplier or
Hey,
whatever.
listen, I'm just trying to find the right person in the company, and like, if you could,
We
like,
know
if you're
you've got
not
a
the
lot
right
of
person,
yeah,
you
we
just
know you've
pass me
got a lot.
along.
Yeah, you got a lot of paper options, and we
Yeah.
understand that. And then
Yeah.
he sends 9 more emails,
Yeah.
just following up.
This guy's getting you free tickets to the Clippers. Problem. But yeah, I don't understand Bournemouth's to move on from Gary O'Neill. And then I further don't understand Wolves' desire to actually make Lopetegui's positions. He also had to leave at this
He
stage of the
left the
season.
club. Yeah,
Seemed
I
like
don't
he
know
was just
either.
kind of an angry person anyway, but I would say Bournemouth and Wolves both in deep
Yeah,
trouble.
yeah.
As a
All right.
Fulham supporter, I am filled with great joy. Let all those other teams fall into chaos. Fulham almost did it this summer. We still could, but there's a lot of chaos happening right now.
All right, so why don't we open this up for some questions? If people in the chat want to post a question or two, I love. Okay, so my question is still about. Alex was just posting about a couple. We're getting hammered with these Caicedo updates, Brandon,
It's big
and
news. That's what happens.
yeah, it's interesting, like if that actually happens, or if they're just using that as leverage to sign the who's the Southampton guy that they were looking at? Lavia,
Lavia.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So I suppose either way, they're going to get their man. It's 110 million for Caicedo is insane, but I don't know. I mean, he's a great player. I don't know. Is he
But
kind? I mean, are we calling him is he defensive midfielder or is he
yes,
a
very, very
central?
much so. He's like a
He's defensive
Conte-esque
midfielder, right?
player.
Yeah, yeah,
And I do think there was an interesting remark in the chat about how the Caicedo signing suddenly lifts Trent up as a fantasy asset. So you could talk yourself out of spending 8 million for Trent because you're like, now the midfield's going to be too soft and cheats. Um, but Caicedo would shore that up. He's got a real engine. He's going to break up a lot of play,
yep,
allowing Liverpool to do their
yeah.
press. So it's
The Colombian
incredible.
supporters were so excited about him when we saw them in
Yeah,
the
is he
Red Bull Stadium.
Ecuadorian
Or
or is he Colombian? Ecuadorian.
he,
Yeah.
yeah, that's that. What did I? No, you said Colombian. I said Ecuadorian. So yeah, yeah, he's Ecuadorian, as I noted a moment ago. So good, yeah, good for Caicedo. All right, so what else are we debating right now? I mean, we've got the
Hmm.
defensively. I'm sort of done. I'm done with the defense. I have some players that I like. I we're both out on Trent now. I think the our friend 11fi has ruined Trent for us, and now we can never return.
The
Um,
emperor has no clothes, Trent.
yeah, I I think I'm like talking myself into this Jackson Pedro thing. But here,
Okay.
okay, here's the problem, and I
Okay,
have to
go
interrogate
on.
my own. I have to
Yeah,
interrogate my
I
own
want to
thoughts
talk a
and
little bit more
feelings here
about
a little bit.
Chelsea here too.
Yeah. Am I doing this to a certain degree because I really like the idea of having a player that plays on Sunday? It's game week 1,
Yeah.
and Liverpool play Chelsea. It's the late match. The early match is Spurs, Brentford. Very strong possibility that I'm going into Sunday without a single player in my squad, and that doesn't seem very fun to me. Opening week, Brandon. So,
Mm-hmm.
is there some part of me that has tricked myself into setting things up this way? I don't know. I do like their fixtures. I There aren't a lot of great forward options, right? We can count them on 5 fingers, right? Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like let me just sort by here. I'll share my screen again just to make this a little more visually
We're all about the
interesting.
screen shares on this pod.
We love a screen share.
Glenn Levy's solving your problem with most plays on Sunday, and he always scores game week 1.
Wait, who always scores game week 1?
Mohamed Salah.
Oh, I mean, that's because he haven't played. I feel like every
Nice try,
time.
Glenn.
Yeah, what a retort from me. I feel like every time. I feel like Liverpool have had like an absolute like peach of a match to start off the season for many years in a row. Right? It doesn't seem like they always play the worst promoted team in game week 1. It feels like they're always
Yeah.
these plum
Fulham
fixtures.
occasionally or Leeds,
Yeah,
and they're always like barn burn, high scoring affairs, no clean sheets.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's going to continue. I mean, I doubt the Caicedo thing would get even if it got across the line. He's not going to play on Sunday. So all right, we have Holland. Obviously, goes without saying. He's so he has broke the game in a way that we've all sort of made our peace with, right? Like we just don't talk about captaincy anymore. It's just maybe we will eventually, but I'm honestly fine with it. It's get rid of.
It's like America coming to terms with the fact that we did lose the war in Vietnam, and now we can all speak freely about it. We
Yeah,
lost.
exactly.
Took a
So
long
we're
time to get
yeah,
there.
we outfield 10 players now is
Yeah.
effectively what happened. So you have Ollie Watkins, who I do like, who I probably underrate a little bit because I've had bad luck with him in my own personal team, but I do like him and rate him as a player. You have João Pedro, we talked about plenty. You have Isak, could be an option, but I just don't really want to have Isak for 1 week, which is effectively what it would amount to, right? Because the three next matches, they're about as bad as it gets, right? Away to Man City, home to Liverpool, away to Brighton. I don't really want him for any of those three matches.
Nope.
There and there's also a little bit of the Callum Wilson risk there too, right? Even though it's been rumored that Isak is going to start over Wilson, it's there's no guarantee, right? And if Wilson starts, then we've got Isak forced out wide again, and that was not a lot of fun for fantasy managers last season. As an Isak owner, when so many others went Wilson, I did not enjoy that. Were you were an Isak man as well, Brandon? Right?
I
You were
was.
both, yeah, an
Yes.
Isak train. Then you've got Nicholas Jackson, the ultimate fun. Let's bring a promoted player in punt, right? You got
A
Darwin,
new
who
signing, we should say.
he's like a new signing because he is a new signing. That's Nicholas Jackson.
Mhm.
You have Darwin, Charles Nunez, right? Who everyone is. I don't know. People are excited about him. I can't get there with him because I just saw him just play like I don't even know, just fall on his trip over his feet for an entire season, and suddenly he's better now
Yeah.
because we all
Incredible
just wanted to.
highlight. The groundskeepers left a rake out on the pitch, and Darwin crashed the box and just like stepped perfectly on the
Wow.
rake. And
And then it was like the sideshow Bob. He just kept walking onto more rakes
yeah,
as he
yeah.
went.
No,
Yeah.
I think Darwin has a better season. The problem is he'll continue to be a
Yeah.
minutes risk.
He's a player that we're willing start of this season. There's no reason to think that he's going to be better than he was last year, unless I mean I get that the underlying stats were terrific for him. I do get that, but if you watch those matches, you saw a player who was completely in his own head, right? He was just not in flow. And so if he ever gets in flow, Brandon,
Mm.
maybe we can consider it. All right, so then we've got. And again, I'm just going by owner, but by top ownership here. You've got Mubama. There we go, Mubama, who's just your classic filler spot. Is he even going to play? I have no idea. You have
Surely
Harold.
they'll sign somebody in the next
Okay.
3 weeks.
You have Harry Kane, who's leaving. You have Callum Wilson, who's rumored not to start. You've got Ferguson, who's rumored not to start. You've got Archer, who's a filler. Again, these are the most owned forwards in fantasy. You have Cody Gakpo, who is rumored to start, but again, he could move. He could end up playing defensive midfielder. Like he could end up practically anywhere in this team. You've got Vissa, who should probably start, but now they're looking at other forwards for Brentford. It's like he's the classic player you're going to bring in, and then you're probably going to transfer him out in like 2 weeks. And that's just not a fun spot to be in. You've got Vinicius. You've got Julian Alvarez, who maybe it's time. I'm glad I'm working my way down here because
We were both so hot on this guy on our game week one
yeah,
preview pod just a few days ago. Neither of us have him in our team anymore. I
yeah,
am like on back to him just because I want a second City player.
yeah.
Guardiol, the Croatian defender, close, but there's just like no conceivable way I think that he starts in game week one. So I'm just going to immediately be soured on the
Yeah.
whole thing. And at 5 million, should be pretty straightforward to bring it at any point he get. So Alvarez, yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you no longer on Alvarez?
I guess I just don't want the stress. It doesn't sound fun to me to go into
Yeah.
every single game week not knowing if he's
Yeah.
going to play or not. I think I guess I really was. I was talking myself into the idea that he was going to be playing as a on the right wing, and once he played in the Community Shield as a KDB replacement, basically, it just sort of took a little bit of the shine off. And for one thing, it means that now I have a forward who's playing as a midfielder, which is sort of just immediately less appealing,
It's
right?
backwards.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to reverse out of position. That's to be avoided if you can. Even with a play, even a team like Man City, I thought that Man City. Someone was talking about how Man City have this new approach where they're going to kind of like it's like crouching tiger. I don't even know. It's like the idea is to like be a little more defensive in shape and then kind of pounce, right, and spring forward into attack. And so maybe they're not going to overwhelm teams the way they have in the past. And so it makes me wonder if maybe I do just want the one player, the one goal scorer. I don't know. Basically, there's three right wing candidates in Foden, Bernardo Silva, and Alvarez. I still think Alvarez could play up there. And until that gets resolved, if it ever does, I may just avoid all three of them because I
Hmm.
do think that KDB. I mean, I don't know. Do you think that KDB is realistically going to be benched in a kind of long term way? Feels hard to believe.
No, he looked decent when he came off the bench in the Community
Yeah.
Shield. There were
Yeah.
some press rumblings that he's saying my recovery is going pretty well.
Yep.
So I mean, given that he got as many minutes as he did last weekend, I'd say he's pretty fit.
Yep.
I mean, he's not 90 minutes a game match fit. But yeah, I
Yep.
think that jeopardizes so minutes for a lot of these options.
Yeah. So again, so if you go down here, I mean, Gabriel Jesus injured, Mitro, who knows, Mikati, no, and Kuku injured, Solanke, too expensive, and Ketia. So Ketia finally brings us back to the Trossard question that Travis Grant asked a while ago, right? So let's pull up Arsenal
Hmm.
here. It's a mess. It's a mess because I thought that that Havertz was somewhat unimpressive up front. Some would argue differently. I do understand that, but to me, I just saw the same Trossard that we saw at Chelsea, right? Player who
Havertz.
does, yeah, Havertz, excuse me, same Havertz that we saw at Chelsea.
Hmm.
Does everything right except can't score, right? And
Yep.
so do they try again with him? Maybe they, they're home
Yeah.
to a promoted to, or I mean,
Fool me
not
once,
promoted,
shame
but
on me.
well,
Shame on you. Shame on you.
they're home to Forest in game week one. I could see even just for his own confidence, maybe they want to give him another shot. Right? He's a big money signing. If one community shield is enough for him to basically get dropped from the 11, even if it's in kind of a fill in spot, I could see that being kind of bad for his confidence. So maybe he starts another one. We probably do see Trossard come in fairly early, but we can't risk Trossard or Havertz, can we? It just feels too messy.
I don't care for it. I mean, this is there. That's the appeal of Odegaard. Is
Yeah,
he is KDB in this way? Like people just
yeah,
want to. I mean, I understand Odegaard overperformed his numbers last season, but they still want to dismiss him in
yeah,
ways you would never dismiss Kevin De Bruyne. And I think Odegaard has. I think he'll continue to do well. Point being, and he's assured of minutes. He's team captain.
yeah.
Saka Odegaard. I think you're in that Pep Guardiola Man City zone of risk rotation with all these
Yeah.
other Arsenal players.
So just a lot of risk and a lot of rotation. To go back to the original question, this is why Nicholas Jackson is a candidate because there's almost literally nobody else, right? It's remarkable. You have 20 teams in the Premier League, and there's maybe 4 players that you could actually consider,
Yeah.
along with Ollie Watkins, who we've discussed, as well. What about Gabriel Martinelli, who we haven't talked about too much in the pod? Is why are we are we being a little too dismissive of his chances? Is it? Are we? To me, I'm slightly dismissive. It's not even dismissive. I'm just slightly reluctant to take him because I do rate Martinelli so highly, right? And it just feels like we're always one kind of indifferent Martinelli performance away from him getting hooked in the 58th minute and getting
Uh-huh.
replaced by Martinelli. Whereas I feel like Saka could play in a different performance and still stay on for 90, and probably same true for Odegaard. Whereas it's just kind of easy to not easy, but it's easier to replace Martinelli with a like for like than some of the other options.
Yep.
So that's what throws me off him a little bit, even at that 0.5 million, savings.
Yeah, his Martinelli's skill is his pace, his timing. Whereas Saka is just like the heartbeat of the team. Odegaard is the brains of the team.
Yeah,
Ye- It's sort of like going back to the Odegaard. His trajectory could still be going upward. Martinelli feels like he probably reached his peak, glorious
Yeah.
season, and with all of the squad depth being built at Arsenal, just seems a little bit of it's more jeopardy from a fantasy point of view with him.
Yeah.
And the
All right.
price, I mean, just to put a button on that, the
Yep.
price is then like an anti-motivating factor with Martinelli, which is why I think people just stop talking about him. He delivered probably at an 8 million price last season, but
There's
now you
arguably
only really
some
want him if
value.
he's 6.5 again.
I think. I think there's arguably some value there. It's just. I just don't like the risk. I mean, it's nice that they made him cheaper. Like it does make him viable. If he was exactly the same price as Odegaard, I think he'd be totally off the table. But all right, Brandon, we're 50 minutes in. Do you
Yes.
have any final? How about this? I
Yeah.
want to open up. We've got some cards here. We're going to open up one pack each of our
Yeah.
match
Check this out.
attacks
Match
trading
attacks.
cards from 2013, 2014. One
Yep.
apiece here. Okay, I hope
Yep.
we get some good ones this time around.
Me too.
But before that, what is causing you stress right now about your fantasy team going into tomorrow? What's the biggest kind of stress point for you?
Midfielders. I think
Mhm.
the stress there is because that's where the biggest array of viable options are.
Yep.
Uh, I think there are teams like Manchester United and Liverpool. I can see it going. I could just see it going really, 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 really well for
Yeah.
both of those teams right out of the
Yeah.
gate. Realistically, I can kind of see it being lukewarm.
Yeah.
The anxiety I feel like I want a piece of both United and Liverpool, and I'm not entirely sure where to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I guess I I'm kind of in the same spot. I would say broadly the Spurs question is there now, just because the appeal of getting in early a Spurs player is
I
really
saw
fun
you
to me.
saw
Yeah,
you
it's
poking
just fun.
around amongst the Udagi fans on Twitter. I mean, that's
Oh,
4.5.
I'm just
That's pretty interesting.
I'm just curious. I was actually asking about 4 million defenders, and there are a couple out there. There's a couple some fours, some 4.5s that are worth considering. The fours, so Baldock sounds like maybe the safest option. I think that it's who do I? Oh, and I got Bayer from Burnley in my squad right now because I saw that Ben Crellin knows that there's a slim chance of a double game week for Burnley in game week 7. And so I was like, oh, I'll get in early on that. But no, it kind of depends on what sort of team I put together. If I have enough squad to handle sticking a 4 million defender at the end, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
If I'm a little worried that that one of my players may not start, then I'll probably go with Baldock. I'll probably wild card by game week 7 anyway. Who am I fooling? Come on, Brian. Let's get
Burnley
serious here.
double. If Burnley double in game week 7, that would mean Luton would also double in game week 7, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big old Burnley Luton double. That'd be a game changer. All right, let's open up.
Let's rock.
Yeah, okay. I'll start off here first. Okay.
Yep.
How about I open my pack and then you open yours? Does that sound good?
Yeah, you're already opening it, so I don't see what choice I have.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. Ooh. Okay. Oh wow, we're starting things off strongly from a fantasy point of view. My first player, Brandon, is you see it here, Gary.
Yeah,
can you not see it?
Oh, Gary Cahill. Yeah,
Gary
it took
Cahill.
a while to sort of like focus in on that.
I can't share my card in my hand. There's no option.
No, that works. Yeah, I love the posture. He's kind of like spread eagle there.
He's got his hands awkwardly in front of him like a
man.
robot. It's very cool.
Is he doing like an homage to Peter Crouch? It's incredible. Looks like he's rated 81. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, 81 overall. He once spent a season as the top overall defender in fantasy. So congrats. I think he started the year at like 7 million once. The prices for defenders used to be way different than they are now. Completely different. It's like keepers are the same way.
Yeah.
So okay, that's a good one to start things off here with. So thank you, Gary Cahill. I think he officially retired last season. I think he's officially out now.
I saw him.
Yeah.
Studio work at the end of last season. So he's now Okay, who's next?
You'll know this next one too. Okay, this next one is Julian Speroni. Do you remember Julian Speroni,
I
the
do.
Crystal Palace keeper?
His name always
Yes.
felt like keeper who I'd eat at his restaurant.
Speroni's. It does sound like a Long
Speroni's.
Island
Meet me at Speroni's.
Italian
His
restaurant.
facial hair is always way too manicured for my taste.
Yeah, yeah. I like 80 save for him. That's great. You know,
It's a
80
big save.
save.
Yeah.
You'd want that from a goalkeeper, I suppose. So congrats to him. 80 save. He does get 46 on pass. So a more kind of in the De Gea school of passing.
Yeah.
Brandon is
Did
Speroni.
we mention for the people watching that all these packs all hail from the 2013-14 Premier League season?
I think so, but I'm glad
Okay.
you.
Okay,
Thank you
just
for
to
mentioning that.
place
So
everyone in time.
there's Speroni. So he's 80 defense, 1 on attack. That's pretty tough. Cahill was 42 on attack. All right, let's go on to our next one here, Brandon, which is this is a good one. This is a very good one, Brandon. Look at this one. Romelu Lukaku.
Wow, that was good. Good Rom.
Yeah, Chelsea, or not Chelsea, Everton.
Yeah.
I forgot how long his hair was back in those days. Look at that long,
that was such a cool look for him.
Hair from 10 years ago. He's
just
kind of
flat track bullying everybody.
His rating's a little low. 55 pass. I think he's better than 55 pass.
This has been a perennial problem or perpetual problem. He's just
yeah, he's expected. 73 skills, 77 shoot. So 22 defense overall. So not like many forwards, not known as a great defender.
He's not part of the press, is he?
Yeah, 87 on power. That seems high. He's not that powerful. I don't remember him pressing hard and winning the ball back.
You never saw him at the local sort of carnival just with the mallet smashing the bell.
That's a good one though. This one's got like a raised. It's got a nice feel to it as well. I like that Lukaku one.
Get that one under glass as soon as possible.
Yeah. Oh, next one's a good one, Brandon. This is your boy, Steve Sidwell. Fulham's own. You should get this one framed and put it up on your wall or something like that. The Sidwell card.
He's a grower, not a shower, as a fan. So,
His rating is, you know what his defensive rating is?
Probably like 63.
69.
Oh yeah, #nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
55 attacks. So nice balance for old Steve Sidwell. Only priced at 5 million, a little low, but nice balance throughout. Everything between 60, like 56 skill. The only thing that he's rated low on is skill, which feels like a tough thing to have.
Half turn is like the greatest skill that he has. So wonderful stuff, Steve Sidwell.
And I got one more card here, and this one I was excited about. I saw it in the back. This is a man of the match card, Brandon. Look at this. It's got this gold. Can you see that?
Wow.
Like gold and silver card.
Is that Neil Warnock?
No, it is.
Brad Guzan.
Yeah, he has a 10 million rating in this game. He's considered twice as valuable as Steve Sidwell, more valuable than Lukaku, more valuable than Gary Cahill's at 6 million. So wow. So this was a moment. I don't know if you guys remember this, but 10 years ago, Brad Guzan was considered one of the greatest players in the Premier League, apparently. But this because it's Topps that made these cards, and it's an American company. I don't know why he's 10 million, but
last I saw Brad Guzan was in the many messy highlights from Guzan just getting absolutely destroyed.
So you have Speroni at 4.5 million and Guzan at 10. Let's see here. So
I'm not eating at Guzan's, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know what? Guzan's is the place. It's the place you're not excited to eat at, but it's where everyone is, Brandon.
Yeah. You can always get a seat at Guzan's.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's my deck. That's I gotta say that was a pretty good pack.
That was epic. That was epic.
That was really
all right. There, I fear there's one direction to go, but let's blow on it for good luck.
Let's see what we got here.
Match attack. Number 1 is another Chelsea player. We've got Andre Schürrle. And I've got some holographic detail here for Mr. Schürrle. He's 45 defense, 92 attack.
You know, this was right around the time. Didn't he set up the game-winning goal in the World Cup? I
Yeah,
think
for Mario Götze.
he
Yeah,
laid
I
it.
think
I
you're
think he
right.
set it up for Gutsa. So this is before he went to Fulham and basically stole money from you guys for like a season or two.
Yeah, well, that's like the lamest thing a club can do is like buy retired players from your biggest rival across the street and just get owned by them.
Yeah.
All right, I misspoke. This pack is delivering on all levels because my
Okay. All right.
next I've got a striker here. It's Steven Fletcher.
Whoa,
Ireland
Fletch.
days. Fletch
Yeah.
lives. 78
Wow.
attack.
Was he in Sunderland till I die? I can't. He must have been, right?
No, this would have been prior to the nation. So Sunderland Till I
Yeah.
Die only started filming after they got
No, but I mean, was he
relegated.
still in the club then? I wonder.
Oh, right,
I'm gonna
right.
look him.
I
I'm
don't
gonna look
think
him up
so.
while you talk. Okay.
I think he moved to France maybe short after this,
Yeah.
and was playing for some League team and a bit of a
By the
journey.
way, someone was noting who said this. Oh yeah, Pat Riley said somebody got an insert, and I do. There's a game. I don't know if you have this in yours as well, Brandon, but there's
I do not have the game now.
Oh, cool. Oh, so we're gonna have to play it's called the MA Shuffle. So Master of the Arts Shuffle. I guess that's when you have to deliver papers at universities across the country to try in vain to get a tenure track job or something like that. It's an awesome multiplayer game that you can play with your friends. Okay, that sounds interesting. All right, so we'll look at that later. All right,
it's the middle of the
a
little bit of a downbeat, and we've got Swansea's own Jordi Amat.
Okay. You know what? I remember
cheap fantasy player probably.
Jordi Amat had a season where he was 4 million in fantasy. I remember that. So I had a couple of moments with Jordi Amat where he was in my squad. There's always the dream with the 4 million guys. Am I going to get a regular starter? But
well, you're getting 27 attack from him.
Yeah, this is why Lundstrom was so legendary. It was because it was a 4 million guy that played out of position and was scoring and assisting. It was incredible. Never have that again.
Okay, a fantasy legend of it on the defense. We're going to White Hart Lane here for Craig Dawson.
Wow, I mean, credit to him.
Michael Dawson.
The
other Dawson.
Michael Dawson.
Dawson.
Great player. Battled a lot of injuries near the end of his career. I think of him, and I think he and Kyle Walker played together for a while at Spurs. This is kind of obviously before the Vertonghen Alderweireld era, the great Vertonghen Alderweireld era.
Frank Stallone, Eric says. Do you think Michael Dawson looks like Frank Stallone? You seeing that?
I could maybe. Okay, I'll be generous and I can't see the card up close though, right? I've got all these windows open right now, so I'll take everyone's word on that one.
And with a big one, and here's just like a little tease. That's the club. That's the club. Name the player.
Oh, okay.
And you see there, it's
Brighton
a midfielder.
Hove Albion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is it? Okay.
Midfielder.
He's a midfielder.
Put it in the chat. Give me some guesses for 2013-14 midfielder.
This is a name we'll know this name then, right? This is like
you won't not know it. You won't not know it.
Is it Maddie? Who was that guy, Maddie? Something or other that was on Brighton.
Not Maddie. No.
Okay, not Maddie.
Dead silent in the chat because we're talking about James Morrison.
James, that's right.
Morrison.
LA Woman.
Chris Brunt. Glenn went for
Hello, I love you. Any number. And of course, many great songs from James Morrison.
Wizard King, James Morrison, West Brom's own, up the Canaries or the Sparrows or whoever they are.
Yeah. Jim Morrison.
Okay, so what a pack that was.
We ended with the Lizard King. I like that. That's great. Chris Brunt would have been if it had been Brunty, that would have been fun. Brunty would have been a fun way. That guy was a legendary.
Very much.
We all had to own him. It was like you had to have Chris Brunt in your squad every 20 weeks or so, just to
man had a cannon. The man had a cannon on him.
He did.
All right, so that's a wrap. That's FPL After Dark. It's getting a little too dark for us to pod. It's getting a little
That's
hot. I guess
true.
we
Yeah,
should wish everybody
has
watching.
burned to the end of its wick here.
Yeah, we got to wish everybody great luck for game week 1. But of course, like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be weird. I think one of the themes from this chat, Josh, is that things are a little unsettled and chaotic
Yep. Yep.
in the league at the moment. So there are going to be dilemmas. There are going to be problems that we're going to have to solve.
Yep.
So stay tuned. Whether it's FPL After Dark, of course, you're always going to get the always cheating pod every Sunday night, Monday morning, or join the Patreon.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, yeah,
Patreon.com/always-cheating.
tonight and tomorrow, we'll be on the Discord answering last minute questions. So if you have any last minute needs or stress points or whatever, it's not just us, by the way. There's tons of people on there talking and chatting too. So yeah, so hop on, go to patreon.com/always-cheating to support the podcast. Thanks for listening. We're going to do these more often because I enjoy them. I enjoy opening the cards, and yeah, it's kind of fun. So
Absolutely.
let's keep this going.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you later.